The ultimate question of adulthood is not, how much am I earning? But rather, what am I leaving behind for the next generation? Will it be a solid, unshakable legacy? Or a mountain of debt that your children are forced to carry in your place? Many of us have been taught to view debt as a necessary leverage, a tool to multiply our wealth. In reality, debt isn't leverage. It's a trap that slowly erodes your freedom. Stop mortgaging your soul and letting creditors steal your peace of mind. It's time to reclaim the mental sovereignty that God has rightfully given you. This video is for those who are ready to redefine their finances according to the timeless principles of the Bible. Together, we will decode why debt is far more dangerous than you think, and how you can transition from an anxious slave into a wise and faithful steward. I have mapped out a faith-based roadmap to financial freedom right here in this video. I encourage you to stay until the very end, because every second of this journey is designed to help you reclaim and rebuild your life. The Apostle Paul presents us with a fascinating contrast here: financial debt versus the debt of love. Financial debt is finite. It's a burden designed to be settled and left behind. But the debt of love? That is the only obligation you are permitted to carry for a lifetime. Because the more you pay in love, the wealthier your soul becomes. Imagine your soul as a conduit, a pipeline of blessings flowing from God to the world. Outstanding debts are like gravel trapped in that pipe. When the line is clogged, the flow of love is restricted. It just can't get through. For those of us in midlife, the answer isn't necessarily working more hours or grinding harder. It's about realigning your priorities. First, clear your headspace. Sit down and perform an emotional audit. Write a list of the times you've said no to helping someone or snapped at your spouse simply because of the crushing pressure of debt. This helps you identify exactly how much of your capacity to love is being stolen by your creditors. When you see the true cost, the friction in your marriage, the distance from your kids, you will find a hunger for freedom more powerful than ever before. Second, establish a generosity fund even while you're in debt. This might sound counterintuitive, but it is a critical spiritual link. Don't wait until every penny is paid off to start giving. Set aside a small amount, even just 1% to 5% of your income, for acts of kindness. This act reminds your soul, I am not a slave to money. I am still the master of my own life. It shatters the scarcity mindset that debt forces upon you. Finally, I want you to apply a principle that defies standard financial logic: the relationships over interest rule. If you owe money to family or friends, prioritize paying them back before you pay the bank. Why? Because when they lent you that money, they didn't just hand over paper bills. They handed you their trust, their sacrifice, and sometimes the very security of their own families to help you through your storm. The bank collects through contracts and interest. Your loved ones collect through silence and grace. Do not let your spirit be weighed down by the burden of an unsettled kindness. When you pay these debts back, you aren't just moving numbers. You are mending bridges and inviting peace back into your home. You aren't seeking freedom just to accumulate digits and become a lonely millionaire. You are seeking freedom to be yourself again. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and instead of fearfully asking, "How much do I owe today?" you look up and say, "Lord, who can I bless today?" That is when you find your true voice. That is when you reclaim your dreams. That freedom is the only prosperity that truly matters. Freeing your soul to love is a beautiful start. But I know some of you listening feel stuck. For you, it's not just gravel in the pipe. It's a massive stone wall crushing your shoulders every single day. Why did you end up here? Why do you feel like your voice no longer carries weight in your own home? Why does that cold sense of isolation haunt you, even when you're surrounded by people. And the key I'm about to share next will unlock that prison door. We are going to strip away the lies and expose how debt has turned you into a modern-day slave. If you skip this next part, you may never understand the invisible chains that are truly holding your soul captive. Solomon says, "The rich rule over the poor." In the modern world, the rich are the credit algorithm systems. They don't use whips, they use compound interest. And the slave is you, working day and night with dreams of a better life. And maybe you already have the nice house and the luxury car, but what if you stopped working for just 1 month? Stop for a few seconds and think, what would happen if you were still a borrower? Everything would collapse, and you'd realize that you aren't the owner. You are just the caretaker of the bank's assets, maintained by your own sweat and labor. The seizure of lifetime. When you take on debt at 15 to 20% interest for consumer goods, you aren't just paying money. You are paying with the most precious hours of your life, hours spent with your children and family, hours that were meant for you to truly live and experience life. Many think that paying the minimum balance each month is good management. But here's the cold, hard truth. If you owe $5,000 at 20% interest and only pay the minimum, it will take you 20 years to pay it off, and the total interest could be double the original debt. God wants you to be a steward, but the bank's algorithm wants you to be a lifelong borrower. You are paying for a meal or a piece of clothing from 10 years ago with the labor of today. That is the exact definition of slave that Proverbs 22:7 warned us about. Why is debt the enemy of the soul? Because it annihilates your right to self-determination. A person who is debt-free can be ready to quit their job if that work requires them to do something against their ethics or faith. But a financial slave cannot say no. They must accept the pressure. They must trade away their self-worth because of the weight of the bill due on the 30th of every month. Your soul cannot be free when your mind is held captive by a creditor. God wants us to have a quiet mind so we can hear His voice. But a person drowning in debt cannot maintain that peace within. The anxiety over debt takes top priority in your mind, pushing faith and peace into second place. You cannot worship God fully when your creditor is sitting right next to you while you pray. To escape this slavery, we need a revolution. First, calculate your freedom index. Take the total interest you pay each month and divide it by your hourly wage. The result is the number of hours you spend working as a slave every month. This helps you face the real numbers so you have the motivation to change. Next is the debt snowball strategy. That is, pay off the smallest debt first. Every time a debt is cleared, spend an evening in prayer and thanksgiving. This will help you create small psychological victories to nourish a larger faith. Finally, establish boundaries. Commit to no consumer debt. If you don't have the cash, it means God doesn't want you to own that item right now. Learn to wait in faith instead of seizing things through debt. You are chosen by God. He wants you to be the master of your own mind. When you escape debt, you reclaim control. I know. Hearing this might make you feel regret over past decisions. But be at peace, for freedom always begins with the truth. However, there is a softer trap, a mistake that honest people like you make most often, pawning your soul to cover someone else's mistake. You think it's love? But the Bible calls it a lack of wisdom. The next part will decode why co-signing can be the final dagger to your family's peace and how to say no while still keeping the love. To understand why King Solomon used such harsh language, calling a seemingly kind act a lack of sense, we must walk through the following layers of context. First, in the original Hebrew, the phrase "one who has no sense" is actually chaser-leb. This refers to a person whose emotions, pity, the need for approval, or the fear of offending completely overwhelm their ability to foresee consequences. In the financial context of 2026, this is a state of being intoxicated by one's own kindness, leading you to sign documents for things you have absolutely no control over. Second, in Solomon's time, there were no insurance companies or complex legal procedures like we have today. On the ritual of the covenant, shaking hands in pledge was a public legal act. When two people struck hands before witnesses at the city gate, the guarantor was saying, "If he does not pay his debt, take my life or my property instead." The value of a promise. Back then, a word was your honor. Once you shook hands, there was no turning back. Solomon warned about this because he had witnessed too many wealthy, happy families suddenly become slaves after just one handshake on behalf of a neighbor who didn't keep his word. The cold, hard truth Solomon wants to remind us of is this: never place your family's fate in the hands of someone else, especially someone who is already in financial trouble. Finally, debt is a relationship between a creditor and a debtor. When you step in as a guarantor, you create an unstable structure. The guarantor. You take on 100% of the risk but receive 0% of the benefit. The debtor. They receive 100% of the benefit but feel less pressure of responsibility because you are there to catch them if they fall. The creditor. They are thrilled because they now have a second prey to hunt for money. Solomon views this as a lack of sense because it violates the universal principle of fairness. You are interfering with someone else's process of learning from their mistakes. By co-signing, you inadvertently rob that person of the opportunity to face reality and grow in their own financial stewardship. After exposing the dangers of this handshake of death, the question is, how do we live kindly but not foolishly? How do we protect our legacy against pressure from relatives and friends? Here are 5 ways for you. 1. Build a wisdom filter before you sign. Before you intend to help anyone by co-signing, ask yourself 3 awakening questions. Question 1. Can I afford to lose this entire amount of money without destroying my family's peace? If the answer is no, then signing is an act of recklessness, not faith. Question 2. Why did the bank, the experts in risk assessment, reject them? Banks have massive data systems. If they see that person is unable to repay, why do you think you are smarter than the entire system? Question 3. Am I helping them overcome a hardship or helping them escape responsibility? Sometimes letting someone face the financial consequences is the best way for God to teach them a lesson in discipline. When you co-sign, you inadvertently cut off their growth process. 2. The gift instead of co-sign strategy. This is the most practical solution to keep both your money and the relationship. Instead of co-signing for a $50,000 debt, which you cannot control, follow this rule. First, set aside an amount of cash that you can afford to give away, for example, $1,000, and give it to them as a gift. Say to them, I cannot sign as a guarantor due to my family's financial principles, but I want to support you with this amount to help you through your difficulty. You do not need to pay it back. The result? You limit your risk to what you can control. You still show kindness and love. And most importantly, your soul is free. You won't spend sleepless nights wondering if they will pay the debt, because you've already given it away. 3. The art of a gracious no. In adulthood, we often fear losing face or being seen as selfish. This is when you need a wise communication script to protect your boundaries without destroying the relationship. The formula: empathy plus principle plus other support. You can say, I truly understand the difficulty you're facing, and I sincerely want to see you succeed. However, I have a personal rule to never co-sign for anyone. In order to protect my family's peace and keep our relationship untainted by money, I can help by connecting you with a financial expert or support you with a small amount within my means, but I will not sign this contract. This shows that you aren't saying no to the person. You are saying no to a risky method. All of this is not meant to make you selfish or narrow-minded. On the contrary, it helps you become someone who is wise and generous. Jesus paid the debt of our sins, but he did so with his own blood, a price he voluntarily paid while maintaining full control. He never wants you to blindly place your life in the hands of someone else's risk. When you master your finances, you gain the power to fulfill the mission of love without hindrance. Learning to say no to external pressure is a giant step forward. But the truth is, the greatest enemy isn't our neighbors or co-signing offers. And the greatest enemy often lies right within us, in the hidden desires that make us voluntarily mortgage our souls for fleeting materialism. Why do we feel empty even after buying something new with a credit card? Why does debt have the power to paralyze your mind? This final part, the psychology of the pawned soul, will decode the biggest hole in your soul and provide a 90-day financial freedom roadmap to reclaim your throne. Don't look away, because this is the moment we connect all the pieces together. Why do mature, educated adults, even those with unshakable faith, still find themselves walking voluntarily into the trap of debt? The dopamine trap and instant gratification. In psychology, spending through debt stimulates the brain to release dopamine, the pleasure hormone. But there is a cruel truth. The joy of owning something new lasts only a few hours, while the pain of repayment lasts for years. We are essentially spending our future to buy a fleeting moment of fake euphoria. In adulthood, the pressure to look successful is immense. We don't go into debt because we are hungry. We do it because we want to keep up with the Joneses. We pawn our inner peace just to buy things meant to impress people we don't even truly like. To break this psychological stronghold, you need powerful spiritual exercises. Exercise 1. The 24-hour prayer rule. Before you swipe your card for any item over $100, stop for 24 hours to pray and ask God, Lord, do I truly need this, or is it just to satisfy my ego? The purpose of this rule is to break the control of dopamine and return the power of decision-making back to your reason. Exercise 2. Surgery on fear. List 5 items you've bought on debt in the last 2 years. Now, look at them. Do they still bring you joy today? This exercise helps you recognize the vanity of material things, so your soul stops craving the fleeting treasures of this world. The 90-day financial training campaign. For the next 3 months, spend only on your absolute minimum essentials. Every single dollar of surplus must be used to pay off your debt. This is a detox for your mind. When you deny your trivial desires, your spiritual intuition becomes sharper than ever before. All of these psychological battles serve one single purpose. Who is the true master of your soul? If you are in debt, the fear of the creditor sits on the throne of your heart. If you are free, the peace of God reigns. God doesn't want you to be in debt, not because He wants you to live an ascetic life, but because He wants your mind to be fully alert so you can hear His calling. A soul that is not pawned is a soul with the greatest power to change the world. At this point, we have traveled together on a journey of uncovering the truth. We now understand that Romans 13:8 calls us to release ourselves from debt to make room for love. We have laid bare the weight of Proverbs 22:7, seeing how a child of God, created for freedom, can be shackled into a slave of interest. And we have warned ourselves through Proverbs 17:18 regarding handshakes that lack sense. Debt is never just a matter of numbers, it is always a matter of the soul. If you feel your heart tightening because you realize you have pawned your soul for far too long, do not be afraid. The first step toward freedom is admission. Let clicking the like button on this video serve as a milestone for your decision to change today. And leave a comment below. I choose freedom. I will be right here, walking alongside you until the very end of this journey. Thank you for joining me. I pray that you find true peace within yourself